there, my name is Irene, and in this video we're going to talk about how we can use scenes to put together a slide package or a construction package, or basically extract 2D drawings from our SketchUp model. So let's get to it. Alright, so we are continuing working with this same model space, and let's say that, for example, I want to put together a presentation for a client. So I want to extract different images, I want floor plans, I want elevations, I want perspectives, and I want to basically extract those images so I can put them in a presentation, whether you're using PowerPoint, InDesign, Canva, whatever medium. So I need these images. In a previous video, I mentioned that you should not be taking screenshots. And now we're going to see what is the correct workflow for this. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be mixing three things in order to create my scenes. And that is going to be sections, whether or not I need them. Remember, you need sections for most construction documentation, floor plans, elevations, details, whatnot. You don't need them for perspectives, but you need to consider your sections. You need to consider your camera settings. So whether you're working with a 2-point perspective or with a parallel projection. And then finally, we're going to use our scenes to tie all of this information together and set it up so we don't have to do it each and every time. So let's say, like, I'm thinking in my mind how this presentation will go. So let's say that I want to have a cover page that is going to be a perspective of the kitchen, because that's what I'm going to be focusing my proposal on. So I'm going to set up my camera inside of my model. Remember, if you want to show more of your scene, you can always go to your field of view and you can adjust to that. I have it at 50. That's pretty good. I could go to 55 if I want to show a little bit more. Maybe. Yeah, let's keep it at 55. I don't want to go too aggressive and fit like the entire model if it's going to look weird. Okay, so let's say that's going to be my field of view. And then again, remember, perspectives should always be 2-point perspectives. Otherwise, they look messy. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say, okay, you should be a 2-point perspective. Okay, so I have set up my camera settings for my perspective, and now I'm going to use my scenes to save that information. So I'm going to come here, and once again, we're going to ignore this, and I'm going to set up my very first scene. So I'm going to immediately name my scene. I like to name them as I go instead of creating all of them and then naming them, because otherwise it's a nightmare. So let's say that this is going to be my perspective. Okay, perfect. Now, let's do my floor plan view. So I'm going to go perspective, and then my next page in my presentation is going to be my floor plan view. I have already set up my sections. So all I need to do is select a lot of sections, and all I need to do is set up who is going to be my current section. So that's going to be my floor plan view. Again, remember, you should not see your sections in your final product. You only want the sections to be visible when you are doing manipulations to them. So I turn on my section, and then I immediately turn it off. And now what we want to do is we want to make sure that we set up our camera to capture this floor plan view. So number one, I'm going to go to a top view. Number two, remember, right now things are on perspective, which can be fine for certain clients, especially if the client is having a hard time understanding typical construction documentation. But normally you're going to want this to read more like a typical floor plan. So in order to do that, we are going to set our top view, and we're going to switch to parallel projection. And there you go. Now this looks like a floor plan. Another thing that I like to do, just because that's the way I am, I like to go zoom, right click, and zoom extend. That is basically going to zoom all to show me my entire scene. But it seems that this scene has like some kind of, like, there has to be something somewhere here on my scene. Oh, and in fact, it is highlighting it. Have we found who is the culprit? Yes. What are you? Do you belong somewhere? I don't think so. Okay, let's delete that. Delete. And now if I go back to my top view and I go zoom extend, let's see. Yes. Okay, perfect. So fun fact, that is a relatively easy way to find out if there's random geometry across the universe of your model. If you go to zoom extend and it kicks you really far out from the scene, it doesn't mean that SketchUp has made a mistake. It just means that there is something somewhere very far away from the model that is causing that kick out. This is basically just going to set up my scene so it is neatly fitted within my model. It becomes especially useful later. We're going to see in a future video. So I have my top view, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create my next scene. So I'm just going to go here and click my plus. Again, we're going to ignore this, and we're going to immediately rename this guy floor plan. Delete that too. Perfect. Okay, great. So I have my floor plan. Up next, I want to have my ceiling plan. So I'm going to come back here, turn on my sections, and this time we're going to go the opposite way. Now remember, another thing that you can do is you can right click on the section and you can align your view to that section. That doesn't always work as well. Like as you can see here is putting my view like this, and I want it like this. So instead I'm going to be working with my standard views. So if my top was for my floor plan, my bottom is going to be for my ceiling plan. Now, one thing that I want to clarify, and we're going to talk about how to solve this within the context of SketchUp, is that technically speaking, this is not correct. The reason for this is because you want to think in terms of it's not just a ceiling plan. The correct name is reflected ceiling plan. Basically, the thing that you have to take into consideration is that ceiling plans are always flipped. So this here is my living room and this here is my dining room. But in my floor plan, this is reversed. So this is all to say that if I would be just extracting this image to put it in a PowerPoint or in InDesign or Canva, whatever presentation, you need to make sure that you mirror this image before you can use it as a ceiling plan. Okay, now in my case here, I'm going to leave it as it is. And I'm just going to turn off this guy here. And same thing as before, I'm going to go Z, right click, zoom extend. One thing that I like to do is, again, remember your SketchUp scenes can remember things that are hidden and unhidden. So for example, in a ceiling plan, I don't want to see anything that has to do with furnishing unless it is something that is floor to ceiling and will affect my lighting. So for example, I think this thing here is a plant. I don't need this plant in my ceiling plan, so I can come here and say you are going to go away. Same thing with this guy. I do not need to have this plant in my view. So we're going to come here, hide this guy as well. Curtains I can leave. They do, especially if they're ceiling mounted, they will affect your design. And then same thing, these are books over here. I have absolutely no need to be selecting these books here. So I'm just going to go, it's selecting the scene. There we go. And now I can come, I don't want to hide the TV. The TV does, I'm just going to hide all of them. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to come back here and we're going to once again align our view. Oh, no, never mind. We said that we were doing the bottom view. Yes. And then zoom, right click, zoom extend. There you go. See? So remember, your scene will remember the tags that you turn on and off. Tags are going to become a lot more important in later videos, and we're going to learn a different way of utilizing them. But for the time being, I'm just going to create my ceiling plan. Ceiling. Beautiful. And now we're going to move on to my elevations. I have a bunch of them. So we're going to come back here. Once again, remember, all of your construction documentation views should be parallel projections. Perspectives should be 2-point perspectives. So let's start. I have numbered them. So it was 1, 2, 3. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to align my view. And then once again, turn off the section. Zoom, right click, zoom extend. Beautiful. Again, if I want to see the entirety, so like I'm going to do an example where I focus just on the kitchen, and then I'll do an example where I want to see everything. But for example, I don't want to see right here, I am cutting through my furniture. I don't want to cut through my furniture. And in fact, if this is construction documentation, I don't necessarily care about seeing this furniture here. Maybe I care about seeing the picture so I can indicate where I need some anchors or whatnot. But let's say that this is just going to be architectural drawing. So I don't want anything that is like furniture or the core. I just want like casework and like architectural details. So once again, I could come here and say, okay, oh no, let's say I'm going to hide this entire thing. Okay, so don't be afraid of adjusting what is it that you see and you don't see. It's kind of weird to have like a piece of furniture that you're cutting through in your view. So if you're cutting through it, it might be better to just hide it. So I'm going to create this. This is going to be my elevation 1. In the description, I could say cooking wall or range wall, range, sure. Because we have like the cooktop or fireplace. I'm following the kitchen as my main guide. Okay, perfect. So that's my first elevation. Now let's switch to my next elevation. So I'm just going to rinse and repeat, and I'm going to speed up through this to finish setting up the rest of my elevations. So I will see you in a second. All right. So with that, I have set up all of my different scenes. And again, the nice thing about this is that your scene is going to remember your camera positions, your camera settings, what is hidden and unhidden. So let's do a quick tour of what we have created. So we have our starting perspective, which I'm probably going to put as the cover for my presentation. Then I have a floor plan, which is showing my furniture placement and decor and like my millwork and whatnot. Then we have a ceiling plan that is just just showing my lighting fixtures and my ceiling architectural detailing, as well as like the cabinetry that goes all the way to my ceiling, in this case the fireplace, and then my cabinets for like my fridge and my whatnot in the kitchen. Then we have several elevations. So we have one elevation that is the wall side of my kitchen that has my range. It also is the side that has my fireplace. Then we have an opposing section that is showing the other side. So this is where my microwave elements are. Then we have two specific elevations that are for the island. And we're going to talk in a different video about how we can make sure that the viewer can understand where parts of my drawing begin and where they end. Because right now in this view here, it can be really hard to understand that this is an island, this stops here, and then what is behind is just like my kitchen behind it. So we're going to learn how we can create that distinction in SketchUp. But basically we have an elevation that is for the front of the island. We have another elevation that is for the back of the island, and then we have a final elevation that is for the side of my island. Okay, so we have all of our views here. So what I want to show you here is now, how do we extract these scenes? Because again, you don't want to take a screenshot. The problem with screenshots is that you don't really control the quality of the image. Like if you are working with a big monitor, fantastic. Your screenshot is going to be whatever resolution your monitor is, which means that it's going to be a high resolution. But if, for example, you're working on the go and you're working on a little like 14-inch laptop or something like that, I don't know if a 14-inch laptop can run SketchUp without dying, but if you're running SketchUp in a tiny laptop, then your screen capture is going to reflect that resolution. So that's not how we do things. So the way that you're going to extract your scenes from SketchUp is going to be using export. So export goes all the way back to one of the first videos in this series where I introduced you to the user interface and different tools, and we talked about the importance of import and export. So again, import allows us to bring stuff into our SketchUp model, and export is going to allow us to get stuff out. So in this case in particular, because what we want to extract are images, we're going to focus on 2D graphics. So I'm going to click here, and that's going to bring me to this window here. So what I'm going to do here, just to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to create a folder that is going to be called scenes or slides. Let's call it slides because this is going to go for a presentation, construction package, whatever. So I can come here and let's say that this is going to be my perspective. There you go. Now, what I really like about working with this export tool is that if I go here on my options, I get to control the properties of my scene. So one important thing to understand is that your SketchUp 2D export of images is always going to be whatever is currently visible in your screen. And this means that your user interface affects the aspect ratio of your image. So this is one of the few things that I don't really like about SketchUp, and it's the fact that you don't get to control aspect ratios. So I cannot say, I want to export this image as a 1:1 or a 3:4 or a 9:16, the standard ratios that we use for images in industry, which I don't love. And I really hope that at some point they will introduce something. But I can control my resolution. So I'm going to show you here like some of the differences that we get when we tweak these. So if I want to be able to change my resolution, I have to uncheck this guy here, and then that's going to let me override. But again, keep in mind that the aspect ratio is locked. So for example, let's say that I want to go with a very low resolution to begin with. Let's say I'm going to go with 600 pixels, right? So you can see that as soon as I switch my value here, that is also going to switch this value here. You can also change the compression if you want it to be a smaller file or better quality. I've never not chosen better quality. I don't know why you would do that. You also have these anti-alias, which is basically just going to help with the quality and the smoothness of the image. So I'm going to leave it on. You could also choose other formats. We're going to talk about them a little bit later, but let's say that I'm going to start with this and I'm going to call it 1 just so we can see some variations. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to export this image just so we can see the quality. And now I am going to open this image so we can see what we get. So I'm going to open this perspective 1 image that I just saved. And this is what we get. So again, as you can see, this is a very small resolution, which is why it looks so crappy. Nothing shocking there. So that is with a low resolution. Now let's see what happens if we go with a higher resolution. Now, technically speaking, you can go with a pretty high resolution here. I think it's like 999. How many nines? I think it's 4 or 5 nines. I'm going to go put several. And then when you press enter, I can see now here how many is the total. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I think I can go more. This is kind of insane. I don't want them to disappear. So let's go 999 pixels. That is a massive image, but just for demonstration purposes, let's click OK. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this guy perspectives 2, just so we can see the difference. So I'm going to click export. And immediately, the first thing that you're going to notice is that my computer has frozen. And this is important to understand. When you are exporting an image, Sketchup is reading what is being seen and it is rendering it. So this is one thing that people really get confused when they hear the word rendering. They think that it only refers to photorealism, and it's not. That is why it's called photorealistic rendering, because you can have just regular rendering. Rendering is basically just a computer generating an image. So keep in mind, the higher the resolution of your image, the longer it is going to take to export. It is still going to be relatively quick, especially when you compare it with photorealistic rendering. But if you are exporting a lot of images, which we're going to learn how to do in a second, this can be a problem. So just to see the comparison, I'm going to open my perspective 2 so we can compare it with number 1. So this was number 1 and this is number 2. Now you may look at this image and you might be like, Irene, there's something wrong with this picture. My lines are gone. And this is the other very important thing to understand about resolution, which is that we are talking about pixels, and in SketchUp, lines are vectors. That means that lines carry information. So the other thing that I have been ignoring, and now we're going to pay attention to, is that when you are exporting your images and you go to your options, you have here this line scale multiplier. So the minimum width that a line is going to be in an image is 1 pixel wide, basically. So what is going to happen here is that the higher your resolution of your image is, the smaller your lines are going to look. But it's not because the lines became smaller. It's because the lines are smaller with the context of the total number of pixels. So if I am increasing my resolution and I want my lines to still read a certain thickness, I need to make sure that I'm increasing my line scale multiplier. So I'm going to increase it to 5. I'm not sure if that's going to be enough, but we're going to give it a try. Also, actually, no. So what I'm going to be doing here is, number 1, I'm going to be reducing this pixels. 9,999 is crazy. Like, unless you want to put that on a banner on the highway, I don't think you need your resolution to be that high. Like, at that scale, you can see like the atoms in your 3D model. I would say that you can work with the resolutions that we're used to from industry. So for example, at this point, we're at 4K. I'm not going into 8K or anything like that. So for example, for me, I usually round up this number to 5,000. Why am I not working with the specific number that is 4K, which is 4,000 and something? Because remember, these images are not working with industry aspect ratios. So anyway, you're going to have to crop your images. So I write the 5,000 because it's a round number and it's easy. So what I'm going to do here is that in order to control how thick my lines look, I'm going to adjust my line scale multiplier. So let's say that instead of 1, we're going to go with 2. In general, I should be able to see my lines a little bit better now because I've reduced my resolution. So let's see how my rendering is going to look with those 2 changes. I have reduced the size, the resolution of my image, and I have increased the width of my lines. Et voila! This is my perspective 3. So see, the lines are thick enough that I can actually see the details in my model. Let's compare it with the previous one. See how it's like lines, no lines. Now, this is entirely up to you. Maybe you really like that clean look of like no lines or almost invisible lines. That is going to be entirely up to you. Let's say that I'm going to leave my resolution like that. So now you would have to go and export each image. So you go here, export 2D, you give it a name, you put it in the place, blah, blah, blah. And then you switch, and then you switch, and then you switch, which is very annoying. And again, right now we have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 images. This is nothing. You're going to have projects where you have, again, 20, 30, 50 scenes to export. So there is a way to batch export. Now, the way that we get there is going to feel a little confusing, and this is because I have been ignoring the original purpose of scenes this entire time. We're going to talk about that in our next video. But if you want to be able to export all of our scenes, we actually have to go to View, Animation, and Settings. So this is going to allow me to set up how my scenes transition from one scene to the next one, because that's the thing. Scenes are for animations. Basically, you can produce video, so you can have a walkthrough of your project. But it is very rare to actually want to do that. We usually just want images for our presentations or construction packages. So here's the trick. If you want to basically batch print in SketchUp, we are going to use our animation. But what we're going to do is that we're going to disable scenes transitions. Scene delay does not matter. So basically, what this is going to do, I'm going to show you here. If I go view, animation, and I play, what this is going to do is basically create a carousel presentation. See, it's just going to cycle through my images. Very nice. And now what I can do is the following. If I want to extract all of these scenes as a single entity, what I'm going to do here, I actually have my folder with my perspectives here. I'm going to create a new additional folder that we're going to call slides again, because I'm very creative. I just want to show you what's going to happen when we start exporting. So I'm going to open this guy here. Oh, okay. And just so we can see it in real time, I'm actually going to, oh, no, I need it to be big. Never mind. We're going to have to see how this works. So we're going to go to File. We're going to go to Export. But this time, instead of exporting 2D graphics, because 2D graphics allow us to export one image at a time, we're going to go to Animation. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, I want all of my slides to go in this folder. And here's the trick. By default, your animation is always going to want to export as video because it's an animation. So instead of MP4, we're going to choose here our format, and we're going to say that we want it to be JPEG, PNG, any of these other ones will work fine. Same as when you were working with your images, you can go here to options and do some adjustments. Now, in this case here, you are going to be able to set up just like the resolution. If you want it to be custom, then it's going to allow you to now play with the aspect ratio. So this is also why I like better to work with this option. So let's say that let's go with standard. I think that's going to work fine. Let's say that for resolution, I want it, if I go 1080, no, that's not, I want it bigger. So let's say that we're going to go with our 5000, but we're going to do the, 496. So it can only go up to 4K. 496. Good to know. So I'm going to set it up to standard, for example. So it is less narrow. And then let's make it 2 for the line scale multiplier. Now, you obviously have these additional options because we are doing an animation. This is not going to matter to us because we're going to be doing images. So I can go here to preview my frame size. Does not fit in your monitor. Please reset. I have to work with my monitor size. So that's fine. Let's go here to 1920. This should then be 1 preview. Okay, so that's showing me how big that's going to be. So I'm going to go here, escape. And now we're going to say OK and export. Now, this is going to take a little bit longer because it's extracting each and every image. But when I finish and I go here to my folder, this is what you're going to get. If I switch these guys to large icons, it has extracted each image as a different slide. So this is how you can basically batch print in SketchUp. So see, there it is, floor plan, ceiling plan, all of my elevations. So pretty cool, pretty sweet. It's going to save you a lot of time and it's wonderful. So you can work on your project the whole day. And then when you're ready to do your export, you can just get all of them at the same time. The only issue that this method has, if I go back to details, is that you may notice that you don't get to control the name. Basically, they're just going to be called slide 1, slide 2, based on like whatever name you gave to the file. So if you want to name the views yourself, keep in mind that you're going to have to do it afterwards. And then if you have to export again, you're going to have to overwrite that. So usually if I use this method, I just accept the fact that my images are going to have a weird default name. And with that, we have reached the end of this video. I hope you find it helpful. If you did, maybe give it a like, maybe subscribe. It helps the channel and that helps me. But otherwise, if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to add them in the comments. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much for sticking through and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.